Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Details of the petition filed by the People's Democratic Party and its presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar on February 23rd elections, challenging the victory of President Muhammadu Buhari and the All Progressives Congress, states that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, computer server shows that Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, won the election with about 1.6 million votes to defeat President Muhammadu Buhari, the opposition candidate claims. Joining us now to speak on this and so much more is Segun Sowunmi, spokesperson of the PDP Campaign Council.
Hello, Segun. Good morning.
Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Dr. Abati.
Good morning.
How are you
Welcome
guys?
to the morning show. Good to have you here. Well, let's just go straight to business. Spokespersons of the APC have alleged that your principal, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, are going to court to raise 5 petitions that is suffering from post-election trauma, depression, and hallucination. What's your reaction to this? Because some people are saying, yes, after an election, it's possible for someone to actually be depressed.
I think that the problem with those who are speaking on behalf of the APC's candidate, who obviously has stolen, has crookedly appropriated other people's mandates to themselves, is that they are totally shameless. They do not even have the rectitude of decency to understand that once you have stolen, and even though you have not been dispossessed of what you stole, you don't have a right to use adjectival gymnastics to insult people's sensibility and all that. First things first, Atiku Abubakar is not your usual kind of Joe. He's a very calm person. He's a very restrained human being. And I tell you this, he's a man that is exceptionally at peace with himself. And I think that the reason why Atiku is at peace with himself all the time and under all circumstances is because he puts his eyes on the objective. He sleeps well, he is eating well, he laughs at people's joke, and I think he understands what his role is in destiny. Atiku is not suffering from any form of depression, far from it. I think, if anything, Atiku is slightly worried at the consequences of allowing the kind of embarrassing joke that has taken place to go on, and what it would then mean for subsequent election, the next generation, what type of country will become and all that. And so I beg to say to them that if we are not in the habit of insulting the lifeless, clueless president that they carry about, they should restrain from irritating us until we break our own high code of ethics, which is that we will rather face the issues than use adjectives to make ourselves look toxic. So, and it's the style that they have always adopted. I believe that they don't mean it, and I think that Nigerians know that they don't mean it, and I would, in advance, because of our own good nature, I'll forgive them for that reckless, careless, and irresponsible comment.
Well, another point that the APC spokespersons raised has to do with the position by the Atiku campaign that they actually led with 1.6 million votes, and that they got these from INEC database. And 2 spokespersons of the APC were wondering how the Atiku campaign got access to INEC database. Would you like to clarify that, the point being made about database?
I am not sure that it's from the Atiku legal team or Atiku campaign that the issue of database or no database took on a life of its own. What you would have heard from us, and now you can quote me, is that we won this election and all the evidences suggest so. What you're seeing and what you're hearing and what you're sensing and what the media is running with relative to the INEC database is that, you know, a nation going into an election, almost everybody in the country, including the military, including the police, including INEC, all of us are consuming the narratives that both sides are putting out. And if people buy into a vision, sometimes there are people within organizations who will be very determined to ensure that absolute truth is made to come to the public. What has happened is that INEC is not an organization that is made up of only the people from Daura. Some of the other people that are working there, who obviously you need to protect, are also now beginning to bring out some stuff, some of them putting on that just so that we know the truth, some other websites that are to say that, look, this is what happened. As far as we are concerned, the strength of our petition and the strength of our confidence that the judiciary will do the right thing is that we have now gotten back all of the things we need to get from the polling units, and we have started to do the mathematics. And from the arithmetics, add and subtract, remove where the errors are. What do I mean by errors? Before people get confused. Sometimes you will see that in the location where they say there are 300 accredited votes, you will just simply go to the paper and you will see that they've allocated 2,300 votes to the APC. These are the kinds of things that we see. Also, we have seen situations where just by doing those adjustments, we know we want them, and we know we want them big, we know we want them square, we know we want them fair. Now, as to whether anybody has cracked INEC, what's it called, server and all of that, I think you should excuse us from such. We didn't say that. We're not saying that. We're only saying that we know what's there. Somehow, maybe a little bird showed it to us, but that's not for us to now come and start confirming or have APC now begin to say just because the evidence of their cookery is beginning to come into public space, and just because people can now see the crookedness of what have done, just because people are beginning to point to the fraud, and just because people are now beginning to speak up on the issues, the international community too are speaking up. You have seen a lot of reports from America, from the people saying that, no, this is not how it's supposed to go. And I believe that they will, like the kind of shameless little crooks that they are, they will look for everything humanly possible to try and discredit what is going to obviously be laid bare before the panel when we get to the tribunal. And lucky us, we have placed the petition before the tribunal now. Our lawyers are ready. In a couple of days' time, I believe, trial will commence, and I want to encourage the journalists, I want to encourage civil society, I want to encourage all Nigerians for the sanity of all of us to participate. I consider the 2019 Presidential Election Tribunal some kind of Nuremberg trial. Nuremberg trial in the sense that, recall that when the second one, when the third right was on, people didn't believe that that level of dastardity and man's inhumanity to man took place in Europe until they got to the trial. The same way, I believe that people are going to be extremely shocked and surprised at the kind of mess that has become us that we're calling a democracy. And if nothing else, just so that we can, espouse and open up what exactly happened, discover what happened, see exactly how it happened, have them argue from both sides, and then hope that our judiciary will be man enough, will be able to stand in the way they're supposed to stand as the last arbiter for everybody, and get Nigeria out of this annoying narrative that once you go to court for a presidential election, you can't have it rerun, you can't have the thing turned over. That's a joke. In Algeria, in one of the African countries, a couple of days ago, Kenya, I believe, they've annulled an election when they have seen that substantial irregularity has taken place, that no decent court or no decent set of judges will allow that to stand. And I think that's where we are now. You always say it can never happen. It has never happened until one brave person is able to stand up and challenge the status quo. That has been the story of mankind, and our history is replete with a lot of evidences that this is also possible. And so for us to go to court, we're not going to court because we don't know that the case is there. We're not going to court because we lost and we're looking for a way to just be disturbing everyone. No, we're going to court because we know we won. We're going to court because there's evidence that we won. We're going to court because we know it will not be fair on this country now and in the future if we allow this nonsense to stand. And we're going to court because we believe that in a democracy, you cannot have legitimate right to govern people if you have stolen their mandate and it can be proved in court.
Mr. Sowunmi, thank you for that. It's trite that he who alleges must prove. How do you intend to prove all the grounds that you've listed in your petition? The little bird who gave you this insider information from INEC is obviously not admissible in evidence. They would have to actually be called as witnesses. Do you have witnesses working within INEC at the moment who are prepared to testify on behalf of your principal about the conduct of the elections? And also, how do you intend to discharge the burden of proof in other matters that you've raised, such as the corrupt practices that you allege were observed during the elections? The President-elect was not qualified to contest, that he submitted an affidavit with falsehoods. How do you intend to discharge these burdens of proof?
Well, let me say, first of all, that we have assembled about 400 witnesses. We're hoping that, knowing the way this present administration is very Gestapo and without any shame willing to do and maim and kill people, that our witnesses are protected. So we want to protect them and protect their identity until they are subpoenaed and called forward before the court, lest we start to lose them to death. I can assure you that our case will be well proved. We have about 10 SANs, and we have a couple of other lawyers that are going to be part of this effort to get Nigeria out of this mess that the INEC and APC has gotten us into. I can also tell you that trial is both a technical game as well as a fact game. On the fact side, we are absolutely convinced that the facts can be laid bare and everybody, including the courts and the lawyers and all sides, can see what has happened. On the technical side, I believe that in the best interest of all of us who are now an African country in a democracy, we're also able to hope that our lawyers can manage the technical issues that usually go into how they're going to do an elections and the tribunal. But you know what? There's also the absolute what is in the best interest of nations' side to reasons why people go to court. And I believe that in the best interest of Nigeria, His Excellency Atiku Abubakar and the PDP have taken the right decision. The right decision in the sense that, I ask you, you have done something that looks like what everybody in Nigeria thinks is unacceptable. The entire country seems to be cowed, and nobody wants to really push himself forward. Most of the stakeholders who should use their voice to say no have become bought by their desire for patronage from government. Some of them have started jumping ship. All of this mess put together, there's still one great thing we need to ask. What happens when we get to another round of election without fixing the mess that this has created, and we now have a convoluting situation where everything now hits up on itself and we then implode the country? Remember that Democrats act in a particular manner in a democracy. And Atiku is true and true a Democrat, and therefore is acting in the manner that a Democrat can act. For instance, if we now get into a situation where we get ourselves in the hands of somebody who is a little bit like the President Muhammadu Buhari, who every time he lost the election in the past was in the habit of saying things that could incite people. What happens if we have two of such people on the ballot and one of them feels cheated and then he incites the whole country and everything gets animated? No, we can't do that. Okay. In any case, we must, calmly ask ourselves as a people, are we going to be quite incapable of having an election that all of us can be proud of? These are some of the issues that the court will determine, and I believe we'll have a watertight case, and I believe that justice will be served, and whatever it is that they are calling a mandate that they have been given, they will be declawed, and their leprosy fingers will be taken off the people's will, and the people's will will prevail.
Okay, Mr. Sowunmi, you've raised pertinent questions, but, your principal and your party raised, concerns before, during, and now after the elections. I just want to ask, how confident is your principal in the process? And secondly, what is the mood in the Atiku camp? Because, they say the allegations, after the initial huff and puff, he's left to his own fate. And we almost saw that play out. His former DG, campaign counsel, barely weeks after the election, endorsed opposition candidates at the state level.
Well, let me say that first. The mood in the camp is very good. His Excellency Atiku Abubakar recognizes that there are champions of change that come into human existence. Martin Luther King was one of them. MKO Abiola was one of them. Right now, it appears as if nature and history has prepared His Excellency Atiku Abubakar to be another champion for what is the greater good of the Nigerian people in a democracy. There's also the fact that, look, sometimes it takes brave men to carry on, even when others are probably losing faith. And on the specific issue of His Excellency Otunba Gbenga Daniel, the former governor of Ogun State, former deputy director of the man said he is retiring from active politics. I think his decision has nothing to do with whether he doesn't believe in Atiku or he believes in Atiku or he wants to jump ship and all that. I think His Excellency Otunba Gbenga Daniel got caught in the web of the media and how they can quickly take one small information and it will just go viral, and in one slip or fleeting slip of saying what could have been better said or better managed, you all know what the whole mess is. In any case, a political party and a political journey is as well like a train station. When you're moving on the journey, or maybe you like, maybe let's use a bus so that people can get the point. Some people come in at some point, the bus keeps moving. Some people jump up at the next bus stop, new people come in, the bus keeps moving. The most important thing is that the driver of the train or the driver of the bus understands what the destination is, and if the arguments are such that they're strong, they are compelling, they are able to go through, then we'll go all the way to the wire. Because let me tell you, the alternative is very dire. The alternative is for us to now get to a point where we will now say, why then do we even bother with an election that an incumbent is standing for? If we know that once an incumbent is on the ballot, the armed forces and the police and security will just start to run riot and begin to do whatever the hell they like to do. If we know that the independence of the Electoral Commission will be such that everybody will be unwilling to tolerate it, if we know that they're not going to even obey their own guidelines of accreditation, if we know that against common sense, it will begin to appear as if you have more people coming out from areas that clearly satellite imagery shows that they can't have those numbers. If we know that that's going to be done, why should we be in a democracy? So the only thing that makes us a sane democracy or allows us to become an improving democracy is for the glory of men like Atiku. And I'll tell you about two occasions when Atiku has saved all of us in this democracy by going to court. The first was, Atiku was the one who went to court to prevent us from having a situation where vice presidential of parties or vice presidents don't just get removed at the whips and caprices of president. Atiku went to the Supreme Court to get us that. Atiku is the one that went all the way to the Supreme Court to prevent us from having a situation where when any one of us want to contest, somebody will just go and sit down in government, cook up one stupid white paper, hang it on your neck, and you will get eliminated. Atiku had to go to the Supreme Court to get us that. So maybe Atiku is going to be in the Supreme Court again to do what only a superhuman can do to get us to be able to look at our electoral situation, probably improve it because the conscience of our society will be pricked by what will be playing out in court, and probably even get our judiciary to get their balls, stand firm, give judgment based on the evidence that is laid before them. And I do not want us to have a trial in the media until the actual trial starts. I can only say that, look, Nigerians are going to be shocked at how low we really fell in trying to give us an election. Well, are you talking about the areas where the total votes given to both sides far outweighs the accredited vote? The accredited vote, say in the case of Kaduna, is about 1.something million. We ended up saying that even when we're looking for about 400,000 votes that has now been overshot by what the margin, you're looking at the situation where they're telling you they have 84 million available voters on one day. The next day they are coming up with an adjustment of 82 million plus. We're looking for 1.6 million. Look, everywhere you turn, it's a mess. We're looking at the things that happened in Borno, Yobe, Bauchi, Gombe, Kaduna, Katsina, Kebbi, Kano, Niger, Zamfara. It's not just small infractions. It's substantial infractions. It's infractions that, except you are a coward and a castrated weakling, you will have to say, hey. Nobody, even for the benefit of those that are sitting in their house pretty and unwilling to resist, you still have to find the courage to give them the Nigeria that Nigeria deserves. If it was not a democracy, why will anybody go to court if somebody has taken over power in an illegitimate manner like soldiers do? But in a democracy, If it is a democracy, it must look like a democracy. It must sound like a democracy. It must be a democracy.
Well, Segun, well, all the points can be argued in a court of law. You know, there will be plenty of opportunity for the courts to look at the details. But before you came onto this program, we had as our guest Basharundele Momodu. And he was very skeptical about what is going to come out of this entire process. And his point was this, that in the event that your principal wins at the end of the day, and the court rules in his favor, that he doesn't see President Muhammadu Buhari respecting that kind of outcome. And as you know, he doesn't know of any other country where the court says, oh, the president should step aside because he's not the rightful winner and another person should take over. Is your camp preparing for any such eventuality, given the record of this administration with regard to court orders?
I'll take Dele Momodu backwards because he's my friend and we know ourselves from years. Before MKO Abiola's election was annulled, it seemed to be that Babangida administration will annul and cancel and prevent and all that, and nothing will happen until God gave us an MKO Abiola who said enough is enough, and history is now able to capture what his contribution has been. Until Atiku Abubakar became the presidential candidate of the PDP, and Muhammadu Buhari, being the president, is the leader of the main party and all that. Nigeria did not have a candidacy situation where unity across board and the dividing line was so clear. Right now, the country is clear about who and where they are. They gave their mandate to Atiku Abubakar. It was taken over by, so far momentarily, by those who are holding it. And we believe that by the time they go to court, they will be able to find out that, look, this is what happened. Now, as to whether when the court now rules that, oh, Atiku won, Buhari will not leave the stage, I think you have forgotten that mankind and the worlds and the nations of the world are constantly learning from the experiences of the past and improving on things. Jaya Jammeh didn't want to leave when he was told he had lost in Gambia. He left. Gbagbo didn't want to leave. He left. In Venezuela, you can see what's going on. The Algerian president wanted to do the human beings, look, nations are not permanently in a state of prostrate calmness. Once the court says he is no longer the president, the court will make some absolute determination, which could be or may not be, go and swear in Atiku or go and do another election. Let us wait until the eminent justices write their judgment, and let us now see whether we will now become a joke that will not implement it. And if in case we do not implement a judgment that says Buhari is an illegitimate president and he should get out of the office, at least all of us and all the friends of Nigeria and all the citizens of the world will call that presidency for what it is. It will call it a pariah, make it a pariah. It will call it a rogue regime. It will call it a crooked regime. It will call it an illegitimate regime. And all of us will then see what next needs to be the next step. If anybody is thinking that, in spite of what we have learned from the June 12th, we are going to now come and throw His Excellency Atiku Abubakar into the mouth of lions so that they can devour him, they are greatly mistaken. We are going to go through this through the legal and civil and democratic way, and we're going to ask, is Atiku Abubakar, the presidential candidate of the PDP, is he the only one that is expected to stand right on a matter that almost the vast majority of us in Nigeria know this is the right thing and this is what ought to do? He will do his bit. Some of us too will have to get up and do our bit. Civil society will have to get up and do his bit. Members of the fourth realm of the estate, journalists, will have to do their bit. Nance will do his bit. Everybody in Nigeria will do their bit according to the little capacity that God has given them. But courage is what is required now, and Nigerians must be courageous.
And yet, in spite of, or perhaps because of, what June 12th cost, there are even supporters of Atiku urging him to just accept the results, saying that, after all, he never beat Buhari at primaries or at the polls. As you said in response to Adeswa's question, you acknowledge that some people are jumping ship. What do you have to say to those people?
You see, when you're running a campaign, like the kind of big campaign and successful campaign that we ran, it's an all-comers game. Those that are jumping ship were called out as moles. We knew some of them had credible intelligence to know that some of them were moles. Some of them were not stable people. Some of them were there for the money. Some of them were there for just the excitement of being part of something. But the campaign of His Excellency Atiku Abubakar has a large number of core believers who understand that this is beyond Atiku. We cannot have a country like ours, multi-ethnic, multi-religion, in a democracy, and tolerating and encouraging that democracy will not improve itself. There is no excuse for what happened in Okota. You can't be beating Igbos because they want to vote. There is no excuse for Rivers. You can't take a gun and start running around the whole of Rivers killing people. There is no excuse for Kano. There is no excuse for Borno. You can't come to tell rational thinking people that you have more numbers in Borno that satellite imagery does not reflect. There is no excuse for you to add the numbers, and even what you are adding doesn't add up. There is no excuse for overinflation beyond the number of people that were accredited. There is really no excuse. If it was just one small infraction, why not? We'll let it go. But we're talking about monumental fraud of a scale that Nigeria has never witnessed in a democracy. And if we just all of us play the ostrich, okay, what happens in 2023? Would we then come in if Jonathan had probably fought and gone to the court, maybe 2019 would not have happened the way it's happening. So if Atiku and PDP will do what democratic organizations and parties are meant to do and go to court so that we can surface the issues, we can look at them, we're not going to be the one to write the judgment for ourselves. It's still going to be down to the consciences of those judges. And it's going to be down to what all Nigerians hear while trial is going on. It's going to be down to whether we have become a nation that is without any remorse or no flicker of truth left in us.
Very quickly,
then if we become a nation that does not have a flicker of truth. Here.
In responding to me earlier, when I asked you about the confidence of your principal in the system, you highlighted some states where there were infractions, Jigawa, Kebbi, Niger, Nasarawa. These are all states won by the APC. Some would wonder, were there infractions in perhaps Oyo, Akwa Ibom, Southeast, or South-South? Are you contesting those as well?
Very brilliant question. Very, very brilliant question. You can win in some locations, but you cannot inflate the numbers beyond what is reasonable. In Oyo now, look at how it was. An election took place. In Lagos, look at what you saw, in spite of the suppression. In all of those areas, you can almost see that, okay, they struggled. One party got some places, one party got another. We're talking about appropriation, appropriating numbers in some of those areas to just kind of like tilt the whole thing in manner that nobody will agree to. And you see, when we get to court, the real issues, the evidence will be laid, the witnesses will be called. As at the last count, we have more than 400. We have managed to put 400 witnesses together. They will come and speak to precisely what happened. There will be scientific data evidence. There will be mathematical issues to determine. There will be even guideline issues. There will be whether they even have the right to stand in the first instance. There are many things that will come up. And you know, I don't want us to do a trial on television. I just want us to prepare ourselves for a trial that I hope will be well prosecuted. Prepare ourselves for a trial that they can defend themselves as best as they know. Prepare ourselves for a situation like I called it, where we'll all say, is this really what happened? Wow. And then prepare ourselves to get about improving the democracy and retrieving the stolen mandate. That was what MK Abiola died for. If Atiku does not go to court to retrieve his mandate, then Abiola would have died in vain. For it would have meant that every time they steal people's mandate, people should just let it go. And I don't think that that's Too many humans sacrificed to get Nigeria to where we are now.
Segun, we'll have to let you go in a few seconds, but just a takeaway question, a take-home question, which you can treat in less than a minute. In spite of all of this, are there certain things, when you reflect on the entire process, that the PDP could have done differently, that His Excellency Atiku Abubakar could also have done differently to, achieve the kind of outcome that you wanted as a political party and here as a candidate?
Except for us to now begin to say that once you are in opposition or you are the leading candidate of an opposition party, you now have to bring military militia and bring in what they call them now, these soldiers of fortune from all over the place, so that they can come and help you provide a military power to be able to meet another military and become a crisis-ridden country. Everything that Atiku needed to do to win this election was done. He won on narrative, he won on agenda, he won on vision, he won on hope, he won in fact, he won in reality. He was only robbed. And it is not Atiku that was robbed. It is the will of the Nigerian people that was subverted. And I believe that in due season, it will be reversed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sowunmi, for those insights on what to expect during the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. Thank you very much. It's time now for a short break on the morning show. When we return, we'll have Arise News analyst Emmanuel Afeni joining us with a review of top stories on today's newspapers. Stay with us.